Hello again, everybody, and welcome inside the VIBELAND Sports Studios. I'm Todd Miller. KP and Casady Fletcher are with me. It is episode 29 of VIBELAND Sports. And guys, we have a terrific show. A lot of things to debate today, but we also have a great interview. Joey McWilliams. Some of you may not have heard of Joey. Casady, I know you know him very well, as do I.
Oh, yeah.
Super nice guy. One of the nicest men in broadcasting. He is the owner of OklahomaSports.net, a website dedicated primarily to college and high school sports, and also hosts Midwest Sports Saturday, a traveling football and soon-to-be basketball roadshow. So Joey McWilliams will join us here in our second segment. How was everybody's weekend?
It was pretty all right. I mean, just kind of hung around the house and watched a lot of football, so it was a great weekend.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch a decent amount of football, got a lot of work done, and it's just pretty fun. Pretty good sports weekend overall, I'd say. I didn't get to see the Sooners play. That was unfortunate, so it kind of left a bit of a big vacancy in my weekend. But other than that, I enjoyed just being a fan.
Speaking of the Sooners, man, how about their non-conference schedule?
Yeah.
Houston absolutely torpedoes it by choking at Tulane. And then Washington State, who everybody loves out of the Pac-12, blows a huge lead to UCLA of all teams.
Yeah.
Strange. Man, college football's weird.
It's a strange thing for sure.
Other than about the top 6 or 8 teams, it's pretty much a crapshoot week in and week out. Before we get to some of our topics, we want to give you the results of last week's VIBELAND Fan Poll question of the week. We actually had 2. And the first one is, which is more likely to happen? Is it A, the Patriots finish 16-0? Is it B, the Dolphins go winless, 0-16? Or C, does both happen? 69% of you think the Miami Dolphins will not win a game this season. 16% believe the Patriots will go 16-0. And 15% of you that voted said both will happen. New England goes undefeated. Miami goes winless. The other fan poll question of the week. And again, we were going to use it a couple of weeks ago, but did not get it posted. And it really turned out to be perfect timing.
Beautiful.
Perfect timing. Our first question last week is, will Antonio Brown last the entire season in New England? Yeah, right.
We didn't even make it to the next week's poll question.
I'm going to tell you. I said it the week before. I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think it would happen this soon, nor did I think it would happen this way. But it happened. But our poll result, no. 66% of you agreed with me. 34% agreed with the other two dummies, KP and Casady.
And they're already wrong.
Yes, already
wrong.
That was a very quick turnaround for that question, for sure.
And now he has enrolled at Central Michigan again.
I saw that.
Which, by the way, did you look at his class schedule, what it was? Yeah. I did. Technical writing.
It's the closest thing you can get to basket weaving 1, 2, and 3.
So Antonio Brown went there for 3 years. Yeah. He's taking technical writing. I took that my second semester, my freshman year. It's the second English class that you take in college. He's taking a sociology class, a religion class, and then one other class. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but again, it's entry-level freshman course that I took within 1 year of being in college. So it's a joke that he went there for 3 years and is now trying to go back.
I hope that religion course helps him.
And it's all online too, so he doesn't get to be diligent in the classroom. So one of his guys can be doing all that. This is strictly for his name and to create a positive image in the media. But it just again goes to show you how clueless this guy is.
It's too little, too late for Antonio Brown. I truly don't think anybody will ever give him another chance again. Where do you go? You can't go in the most player-friendly system in Oakland, where they let you get by with about anything, and then you go to the perfect system in New England, and you can't keep your nose clean for a week. There's no hope for him.
Yeah, that seemed kind of like the final straw for his career there. It really did feel like that one was a little bit different. Now that you've flamed out in New England, that you're kind of out of options. That is the last place that people go. That you use that and show that you've been rehabilitated from whatever it is that people are stigmatizing you for at the moment, and then you might get a contract somewhere else. But unfortunately, Just more and more keeps coming out about this story. Fortunately for him, fortunately for the whole situation. I was still very surprised that he played at all this season. But
the Patriots couldn't wait to get him out there.
Oh yeah,
I think they felt they needed him probably to beat Miami.
They probably. Oh yeah, right. And so now the fact that he's gone, it just kind of seems like, well, that was the New England not doing their homework when they should have been.
He apparently was not vetted at all by New England.
Yeah, he was. He was vetted. They said, that's the best receiver in the NFL. Yeah, we'll take him.
Sure. Yeah, that's probably as far as they look.
And then Bill Belichick doesn't want to answer questions. I'm sorry, dude. When you bring on a guy with the character issues and the problems of Antonio Brown, you're going to be left to clean up the horse crap for quite a while.
It's just how it is, man.
And the way he treated Dana Jacobson in the pregame show on Sunday, I thought was awful.
I mean, that's about par for the course for Bill Belichick. You kind of become numb to it. I agree with you. It's not how you do it, but I was like, no, it's Belichick being Belichick, which isn't a good thing.
I have no problem with him saying, I don't want to answer any more questions about Antonio Brown. But the way he gave Dana Jacobson the death stare,
oh yeah,
that's scary.
Yeah, he stared right through her soul.
I mean, I didn't sleep for 2 nights. All I could see is Bill Belichick standing over my bed giving me that death stare.
Just waking up in cold sweats.
Yeah.
All right, enough about that dead horse. Hey, don't forget, if you haven't followed us on social media, do so on Twitter and Instagram at VIBELAND Sports, and on Facebook, VIBELAND Sports. We'll have a fan poll question of the week. We'll get that to you coming up in segment number 3. And again, you can log on at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter to cast your vote. It's going to have something to do with our first topic of the day, and that is there are 8 unbeaten teams remaining in the NFL. Not 8 unbeaten, untied teams. There are 7 3-0 teams, and the Detroit Lions are 2-0-1. Our question that we're going to start tonight with is, of the unbeatens, which one are you buying the most right now? KP.
Well, I'm going to put my Homer hat right on. Let's just get on with it. It's the Cowboys. I'm buying in. Again, I've been telling myself all year I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and I still don't. I still feel that way. But the game against Miami, I mentioned it a few weeks ago talking about OU. There's opportunities for teams to fall asleep and let an opponent come in that's way below them and play to their level. I think the Cowboys did that a little bit in the first half, but the second half they sure woke up. That defense woke up, didn't allow another point. So I liked the shutout in the second half. I liked Dak using his legs a little bit. I liked him spreading the ball out. So I'm buying on the Cowboys right now. Their defense isn't as good as it was last year, but it's still a top 5, top 10 defense in the NFL right now. And I think they ride that for the foreseeable future, because their schedule right now, it gets a little bit tougher moving forward than it's been these first 3 weeks. Because as we were talking about earlier, their first 3 weeks opponents are 1-8, I believe.
Woof.
So yeah, let's look at their opponents who they've played before we get too far ahead of ourselves. But I am buying high on the Cowboys right now.
But you know what, KP, that's no different than a lot of teams that are unbeaten. The New England Patriots' first 3 teams combined, 0-9.
Yep.
Buffalo's first 3 opponents, 1-8. And the only reason they're 1-8 is because of a guy we're going to talk about later in the show, Daniel Jones, who got his first start and led the New York Giants to their first victory of the season. I'm going to buy... I want to go with Dallas because I do believe in the Cowboys now, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, they still have Aaron Rodgers, who I don't think is as good as he has been. I don't think their offense is quite as potent as it has been in the past, partially because they're just really struggling to run the football. But their defense, I think I said this last week, guys, is so much better than I thought it was going to be. And that division is good. Minnesota, Chicago, Green Bay. A couple of weeks ago on our show, we thought all 3 of those could be in the playoffs. Already Green Bay is 1-0 against that duo away from Lambeau, and they're 2-0 against the Bears and Vikings to start the season. So I'm buying Green Bay. I know that's not really going out on much of a limb. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, they don't have a bunch of injuries, I think their defense is surprisingly good, and I think the Packers have a chance to be really good.
See, that's very interesting. I was honestly almost had them in my sell side of things.
Right.
I'm just not sure what I've seen yet so far. I don't know if I can trust it.
I'm surprised by what I've seen. Before the season, if you would have asked me, I thought they were like a fringe playoff team.
Agreed.
If that. So the fact that they
I picked them as a wild card, if you remember.
You did. And if you picked them to, starting out 3-0 with a brand new head coach, and again, I'm just shocked by how well their defense is playing.
Yeah.
All right, who's your buy?
Well, honestly, I got to put Dallas up there somewhere, but I'm going to go with, again, it's not a real out on the limb pick, but New England. I mean, for all the reasons that we kind of talked about earlier, their division is just bad. It's really bad. And they're going to have a chance to just beat up on bad teams all season because of that. It's New England. You know exactly what you're getting out of Brady in that offense. The defense is doing its thing again.
Their defense is incredible.
Wow.
This year.
Yeah, it is back to
maybe the best defense they've had.
Yes,
absolutely.
back to
I heard a story
top level,
where
Super Bowl level.
Absolutely. I heard a story where Brady and was kind of saying that they were a little worried about their offense going into the season, but they just realized, in training camp and stuff, like, oh no, our offense wasn't doing good. It's just our defense is that good and was slowing us down to where we were concerned. So
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it was just they were able to really buy in on that defense. And if you look at the point differential by the Patriots this year, they are plus 89.
Wow.
They have scored 89 more points than their opponents have.
So when you play Miami out of the game.
Yeah, speaking of point differential, the Dolphins are minus 117. So.
Oh my gosh.
That's historically bad.
And I would
3 games.
I would also like to say, if I'm buying here, I would hedge my bets. I'd put half of my buy on New England and half on Dallas. I'm just going to admit it. I was wrong about Dak Prescott. He is a very good quarterback, elite level quarterback. I don't know if I'm necessarily ready to put him in the top echelon of quarterbacks, but he's definitely on that second tier for sure for me. And going into the season, I would have just put him in a grab bag with just about anybody. He was dead center in quarterback rating last season for all QBs that actually had a full season QBR, and so I kind of was expecting something similar out of him, but my goodness, I know it's a different system. I know I'm giving a lot of that credit to Kellen Moore, but he still has to go out there and make the plays. He's making the calls at the line. He's the one who's actually performing and racking up those yards and those points. And after a really disappointing first half against Miami, I thought he came out and executed a couple of really nice drives in that second half.
It's 2 weeks in a row that's happened. He did that against Washington the week before.
He's making adjustments, and he's coming back, and he's looking better. He has a perfect QBR in the third quarter, 158.3 for the season. That's crazy. When I saw that, I was like, okay, there's something to this. He's not just going out there and had a couple of decent games. He's out there like performing at the highest possible level you can as a quarterback for at least that third quarter, and a lot of times that can make or break the game. So props to Dak, and I was wrong about him, but that's why I got to put the Cowboys up there. Me too.
I'm going to tell you this again about Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott is I'm not convinced, a great NFL quarterback yet. But if you look at all the junk that's behind center in the NFL, the Cowboys ought to feel pretty fortunate they have who they do.
Exactly.
My problem is he does not deserve the money that he's going to command. You have to show me something in the playoffs. Beating the Giants, beating the Dolphins, and beating the Redskins, who are combined 1 for 8 in September, does not make you a Hall of Fame quarterback to me. So I've got to see more, but boy, he has played. He's other than Mahomes, probably, and Brady, and maybe even better than Brady, he's been as good as anybody in the league.
Absolutely. It's too early to have this conversation, but if you were having an MVP conversation,
it's not when you have 3 Cowboy fans on here.
No, yeah, there we go. Let's talk about it.
It's his decision-making, too, that I think has just gotten to a
better. And again, I think
different level.
It has to. The common denominator here, the difference this year is Kellen Moore.
Yes.
It's got to come down to that. I mean, Dak is playing – his rookie year was incredible, and he's just – hasn't been a big regression, but he's slowly regressed, and we're finally seeing a step in the positive direction, and it's a huge step.
Yeah, because we saw, I think, Dak at his – or at least the best version of Dak his rookie season. Now we're getting that again. This is the best version of Dak Prescott, and he's a very, very high-quality – NFL quarterback, and I loved when he threw that one interception. It was terrible. I mean, just awful. It was everything.
Stand up I think I audibly said, "What are you doing, Dak?"
Yes, one of those.
One of those.
Sure. And I loved how immediately after he goes over, he's sitting on the bench. Kellen Moore right next to him. He's showing him all the pictures and everything, flipping through what he needed to. And he went out and was just a great quarterback from that point on. But it's like those little things that, he made a bad decision. He comes straight back. He gets it all back on track. And that's why I'm going with Dak. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but I'm going with it.
Okay, of the unbeatens, Kansas City, Dallas, the Rams, the Patriots, Buffalo, San Francisco, Detroit, who's 2-0-1, and Green Bay, which are you guys selling that is not near as good as the record? I'll take this first, and it hurts me because I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I love the Buffalo Bills, always have since I was young, love Thurman Thomas, I know where he went to school, I love Jim Kelly, loved all those guys. Feel bad that you get the 4 straight title games and get whitewashed 4 straight times. But I'm a Bills fan, but I'm not buying the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is 3-0. Their combined opponents are 1-8. And they have had to rally to win the last 2 games, or 2 of their first 3, against the Jets, who are not very good, obviously. And last week against the Bengals, who they were about 5 minutes or less away from being 2-1. With Cincinnati at home. So I can't buy the Buffalo Bills. I think their defense is better than people thought it would be. I think their quarterback play has been a lot better than people thought it would be. I think they've got a chance to be a 500 team, maybe 9-7, be on the fringe maybe of making the playoffs in the AFC, but I'm not buying anywhere near the fact that they're as good as their 3-0 record.
I have to agree with you, Todd. That was my pick also, that I'm not buying where they're at right now, but I'm buying that defense. That defense is looking great, and the longer the season goes on, the colder it gets in Buffalo, the harder it is to play in Buffalo, and the harder it is to play offense in Buffalo. And if you've got a great defense, things are going to be sitting pretty. But if I've got to pick one of the team here that I'm not buying, it'd be Buffalo because of their opponent's record, but also not far behind that, Detroit. They've had a couple impressive wins.
They should be 2-1.
I'm just not buying into Matt Patricia's offense yet. It's not really his offense. He's a defensive guy, but I'm just not buying into the Detroit offense yet. Matt Stafford, he's always been a gunslinger, but a guy who doesn't get it done when it counts. So he's one of those guys. It's like at the end of his career, we're going to look at his stats and go, those are Hall of Fame stats, but I don't think he had a Hall of Fame career. It'll be interesting to see the narrative of Matt Stafford when his career is over.
Who do you like, Cassidy?
Well,
or don't like?
Who I don't like, I'm going to go with San Francisco. Just don't trust them. Don't know if they can do this for the whole season.
They've got a tough schedule. They still have to play Green Bay. They still have to play Dallas. Yep. They've got Seattle, who obviously looks a lot better, and the Rams twice still remaining on the schedule.
And that's exactly right. It's because that's my the other side of that is I think they've already gone past the easy part of their schedule. And I think if you put that slate of teams anywhere in their schedule in a 3-game span, they're probably going to go 3-0. And so I feel like they have too many big obstacles in the way, and I don't trust anything on that team yet. They're going to have to prove it to me and do it over a full 16-game season, not just 3 in a row.
Okay, there are 7 teams that are winless after 3 weeks in the NFL. Miami, the Jets, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Denver, yes, Washington, and Arizona. If any of those, anybody out of that group, Cassidy, can rally to make a run at the postseason after starting 0-3, is there anybody there?
Oh, man. Well, obviously, no to Miami. I think we can pretty much all agree on that. But, I would probably say I'm going to have to probably say Pittsburgh, and I don't like to say that because I am not a Pittsburgh fan, but I think getting Big Ben out of there might be the best possible thing for what they have going on. And I don't know. I think they can turn things around. I think they have a brand new identity now. All the big players on the offensive side who were there for the last 3 or 4 years, they're all gone. It's the start of a new era, and I think that they are going to find their footing, and especially in that division. I think right now they're going to be fighting and can at least get to a wild card spot if they can just play out the rest of the season like we thought they were going to all year.
I agree with you, and here's why. The Steelers are not very good. I mean, they need Ben Roethlisberger, whether you like the guy or not.
Oh.
Mason Rudolph did not look very good last week. Now, I think he's going to get better.
I agree.
I think he will be – they're better off with him as a backup than most teams in the NFL are
I just think,
with their backup.
Yeah, now that he's going to be a starter going in, he's going to have a different mentality, prepare differently. I think he's going to be better.
But keep in mind, he's now at the top of everybody's scouting report,
good
too.
point.
That changes. I do think Pittsburgh has a chance of that bunch of junk to probably turn it around. And one reason is their division. Cleveland obviously is not playing like the Cleveland Browns we thought we were going to see. Baltimore is playing very well, but all of a sudden, if Cleveland goes to Baltimore this week and wins, here you go. They're 2-1.
2-2.
So,
they'd be
Cleveland wins, they'd be
2-2.
And the Browns would be. So I don't know that anybody's running away with that division.
Right.
I like Pittsburgh. There's one team on here that maybe, but I don't like their schedule because they have to play the Chargers twice and the Chiefs twice, although the Chargers look like junk too right now, is the Denver Broncos. Mm-hmm. Denver's offense is capable, in my opinion. I don't trust Joe Flacco to beat anybody. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and yet he was on the scrap heap from Baltimore, made available by the Ravens. They let a Super Bowl winning quarterback go. There's a reason why. Their running back situation is adequate. The receivers are okay. I do like the Broncos' defense. I just don't think there's enough there, though, for them to get out of an 0-3 hole in the division.
Right, in the AFC
Exactly.
West, which is just a murderer's row.
Exactly.
So,
and I mean, I have the same answer as you guys. It's Pittsburgh and Todd. I mean, you guys have touched on every point I wanted to make, and my biggest one was the division, just like you said, with Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. I mean, there's a 1-2 Cleveland Browns, 0-3 Cincinnati, and a 2-1 Baltimore Ravens. So
still wide open.
Mathematically, I think they've got the best chance to continue on. But I do want to touch on a team that none of us talked about, and I'm not buying in 100% that they're going to rise and make the playoffs, but I think I think people are going to be more impressed with them at the end of the year than they currently sit, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. They've been close. They're not there yet. They've still got a long way to go, but
that division's really tough for them.
Their division's
right now.
really tough with a 3-0 Rams, 3-0 49ers, and 2-1 Seahawks, who should probably be 3-0. Yeah, that's tough. So that's a tough thing to overcome, but I think I like what Kyler Murray's doing there. They're moving in the right direction. Again, they're not my team to come out of this, but I just wanted to mention them that because the rest of these defeated teams, I think, are a pile of garbage. Miami's not going anywhere. The Jets aren't going anywhere until their quarterback comes back from mono. Cincy, I don't trust them. And Washington, no way. So you touched on Pittsburgh and Denver. I wanted to touch on the Cardinals a little bit. I like where they're going. I don't buy that they're going to be a playoff team.
I will say this about the Washington Redskins. That thing is a dumpster fire, maybe more than any of the other teams. From top to the bottom. And it starts, you're right, with ownership. Since Daniel Snyder in 1999 took over that franchise, I think I'm right when I say this. They've won 3 division titles and been to the playoffs 5 times. And don't be surprised if next week when we get back together, Gruden is no longer the coach of the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, Booger McFarland was trying to fire him on Monday Night Football last night. If you guys watched that broadcast.
I'm just telling you, it's dysfunctional as It's a team that Washington, D.C. deserves, if you want to know the truth.
Of course.
Its largest employer there is a dumpster fire. Our government, why shouldn't the football team be too?
Exactly.
So anyway, that's our picks for who we're buying and selling among the winless and the unbeaten teams in the NFL. Baker Mayfield looked awful on Sunday night. Showcase game for the Cleveland Browns. First time in, I think, maybe since the Stone Age that they actually had Al Michaels at a game in Cleveland. Prime time. And I'll give the Browns a little bit of credit, okay? They were down 4 guys in the secondary. And yet they had a chance because of their heart to win that football game. But it wasn't because of their coach, Freddie Kitchens, who is a clown in my opinion. And if you watched that game at all, you knew that he was just a buffoon calling plays. Baker Mayfield didn't play well either. And the offensive line in front of Baker Mayfield sucks with a capital S. That's putting it nicely. I'm going to put it right up there with the Arizona Cardinals. But Baker Mayfield, this is the first time I've really probably watched him for 4 quarters in an NFL game. I've watched quite a bit, but not 4 quarters. I noticed 2 things he was doing. One, he's got a horrible habit of always avoiding pressure to the right. People have figured that out, and if they haven't, the last remaining people will figure it out pretty quickly. So he's got to get out of that habit. The other thing I thought he did very poorly the other night, and you guys can tell me if you agree if you watched the game, he locked in on one receiver.
Yeah.
One receiver. It was Odell Beckham most of the time that he was forcing the football to. I mean, he's got to get better, and I think he will get better. But the reason I bring this up is a lot of the national pundits now, and this is laughable to me, and maybe it'll eventually happen, I don't know. But how can we say Daniel Jones is already a better NFL quarterback than Baker Mayfield after one game? Do you
ridiculous.
Guys think Daniel Jones is or will be a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield?
I can't answer that question because Baker's got now 16 NFL starts under his belt. Daniel Jones has 1, and the only reason Daniel Jones is 1-0 is because the Buccaneers kicker choked and didn't make the kick. So let's be square about that. Let's remind ourselves why he's 1-0. He did have He
had a heck of a game.
He had a heck of a game. He played amazing. Let's not take that away from him. But the facts remain.
And let's give him credit too. He won a football game playing with the New York Giants defense.
And down by 18. Yeah. So let's give him – he deserves credit. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Baker Mayfield, you want to talk about a trash franchise resurrecting it. Baker Mayfield is the poster child for that. But I agree with you, Todd. They've been extremely disappointing this year. Everybody was really high on this Baker Mayfield-Freddie Kitchens relationship.
No, I don't know about Freddie Kitchens, but I was high on the Cleveland Browns.
I was too. I was very high on the Browns.
Everybody was high on the Browns, but everybody in the offseason, Freddie Kitchens and Baker, this is going to be a relationship that's going to work out great. Clearly, it's not already. I mean, the play calling on, 4th and 9?
4th and 9, a draw play against the best NFL defense.
And then when they lined up
1st and goal to go with a game on the line, you don't run the ball one time. With
kidding.
Nick Chubb or Baker Mayfield in your backfield. And then you go empty set.
On the last play. And watching that game, when they walked up there, I don't think there was a person in the world that thought that they were going to score a touchdown right there. I know they had 4 plays to do it. I was like, I don't think they're going to do this. Their body language was defeated. Baker was defeated, and there was the play calling was terrible. Nobody was open. And by the way, if you want to call a draw play, Freddie Kitchens, how about 4th and goal when you go empty? I saw it on TV. Booger said it. I go, there's like one linebacker right there. Baker could walk it in if he wanted to, but alas, they go with another pass, 4th in a row, and it wasn't there. They had no shot. It was kind of gross to watch the end of that game, to be honest. I'm not buying in on the Cleveland Browns. I didn't buy into the hype before the season because they're still the Browns, and
You're right.
I like what Baker's about, but I'm not fully sold on him yet either, and I think that is proving true, but I know he's a guy that this is just fueling Baker's fire. So this is the kind of chip that he needs on his shoulder. I don't doubt the Browns fire off a winning streak here pretty quick because they hear these haters, and like I said, that's what makes Baker better. So
here's the problem, though, the Cleveland Browns have, and we're not really supposed to be talking about the Browns, but we are. They're getting ready to embark in a very difficult stretch, and they're already behind the 8 ball at 1-2. But if you go to Baltimore and win this week, everything kind of levels up. But I'm telling you, this is a tough stretch they're getting ready to go through. And I saw nothing Sunday night, especially from their quarterback, that made me think they're going to turn this thing around anytime soon. I did think their defense was good, despite the fact, as I mentioned earlier, Casady, they had 4 guys in the secondary that were out.
Yes. Look, I think the Browns are going to find a way to at least salvage their season and be okay. Now, is it going to be around 500 again like they were last year? Maybe. I mean, that's not terrible for the Browns. Yes, they had high expectations. Heck, I thought they were going to win the division going into the season. But, look, maybe it's just a bit of a sophomore slump for Baker, and maybe people have started to figure him out a little bit more, and they are able to shut him down in some of the stuff he's wanting to do. So he's got to be less predictable. But with Daniel Jones, I mean, I don't know yet. It's just still too early to tell. Yes, he had a good first game, but again, like Kelby was saying, if you don't have a kicker choke, then he's 0-1 in his debut, and people are going to say, yeah, he put up great numbers, but he didn't even get the win.
But listen to this.
Came close.
What's the stat, KP? Eli Manning had never done? He was
Eli
0
Manning
and 44.
was 0 and 44 in games in which the Giants were down by 18. Daniel Jones is 1 and 0 in games where the Giants were down by 18.
Of course. Yeah. Well, that's my again.
He just does things that Eli can't.
I like
do.
Daniel Jones.
2 rushing touchdowns.
Now, yes. Now, I will say
I think
that
it's
if you're
absurd to crown him the
comparing
next Joe Montana after
Right.
one game, but I do like what I saw from him. I do like his upside.
Comparing him to Eli Manning, yes, he looks great, and that's a very low bar to compare a quarterback, in my opinion, especially at this point in Eli's career. I just think he doesn't have a whole lot left in the tank, and so seeing Jones come in and have a fresh take on that offense and actually have a little bit of life to him, I mean, I think the team around him responded to that as well, and so it's still just too early for me, but best of luck to him, I guess. Not really, because I can't stand the Giants, and they're in the Cowboys division.
I think I'm going to go with Baker right now. Obviously, a bigger
Gotta
sample
go with
size,
Baker,
but
though.
I'm going to tell you what I think to say that Daniel Jones right now is better than Baker is a little bit absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, Baker's been in the league now a couple of years, but I do like Daniel Jones.
Did Daniel
I'm just
Jones have
telling
a better game on Sunday than Baker? Yeah.
you. And we're going to find out something else about
That's it,
Daniel
though.
Jones. No Saquon Barkley for about 2 months.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Let's see how good he is after that.
Yeah, 4 to 8 weeks
When he's
out
the
with a high
focus,
ankle
when he's
sprain.
the top of
Yeah.
the game
That
plan.
is
You're right,
a
Todd.
rough.
Let's see how.
That's going to be a rough stretch.
All right, that's our thoughts on the NFL. Coming up next, we'll talk college football, look back at Oklahoma State, Texas. We'll preview the Cowboys' home game this Saturday against K-State, the Sooners' home game against Texas Tech. Mike Gundy is ranting again. We'll talk about that. I love this one. And also big problems perhaps on the horizon for the University of Kansas men's basketball program. All that coming up. But next on our 29th episode of VIBELAND Sports, we will talk to Joey McWilliams, the owner of OklahomaSports.net and the host of Midwest Sports Saturday. Joey joins us next on episode 29 of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Inc. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back inside our VIBELAND Sports Studios. I'm Todd Miller. Time now for this week's interview segment on episode 29. He's a name that is very familiar to college sports fans across Oklahoma and Arkansas. He's Joey McWilliams of Durant. He is the architect of OklahomaSports.net and also the host of Midwest Sports Saturdays. Joey, it's great to have a chance to visit with you.
Todd, I can't even tell you how good it is to get to visit with you. Seriously, the honor's mine.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what you do. You've worn a lot of hats. You've been in the broadcast booth, and then you kind of branched out a couple of years ago. You started OklahomaSports.net and ArkansasSports.net, really covering high school sports and small college sports primarily. But now you have a traveling show, Midwest Sports Saturday. How did all this come together for Joey McWilliams?
Well, I'm just thankful. God's opened up some really good doors for me. I started covering sports back in 2000 and 2001. I had coached high school basketball for 3 years and stepped out of that. And the door opened up to start broadcasting Durant High School games and Southeastern University football games and basketball games. Did that in 2001. And that lasted for 11 years and came back and did a couple more years. So I have 13 years in the books as being the color guy for Southeastern. And boy, there have been some fun games. Got to make it all the way up to a national championship game in 2002 with women's basketball. And that really was a lot of fun. But as things evolve, you start looking and go, well, what should I do with this? And I actually went back to school, got a second degree, a journalism broadcasting degree from Oklahoma State University from 2010 to 2012, class of 2012 there. And a lot of the folks that are in my class, that sounds funny. You know, I was 41 when I graduated the second time, but there are a lot of folks that are in my class that are in the sports industry throughout the Midwest, in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas City area, Kansas and Missouri, and all around that. That is really, it's neat to get to see those young people doing the jobs that they do well. And it's nice to have not only a degree in journalism and broadcasting, but a little more training. You know, I don't know about you, Todd, but when you step into this for the first time, you think, oh, I think I can do this, and find out there's a lot to it. There really is a lot to broadcasting, whether it be the play-by-play person or the analyst. No matter what, there's a lot of study that goes into it, and it takes a while to become good and really, you know, put some quality into your craft. So I appreciate the training that I received at Oklahoma State. It was very good. Getting to sit in a class with Dave Hunziker,
yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was fantastic. I think I'd have done the whole 2 years just for that one class. And so during the time at Oklahoma State University, my brother and I started a site, oklahomasportsblog.com. That's what it was called back then. We did evolve and change it to oklahomasports.net, and doing, as you mentioned, small college and high school. Small college really doesn't get as much coverage as it should. And that may be just my opinion, but I really feel that way. And in Oklahoma, there are so many small colleges with quality programs, quality athletes, and stories to be told. And so that's how that started. And of course, with the years that I've worked with the Great American Conference, of course, now there are 6 Oklahoma schools, 6 Arkansas schools, and there were folks in Arkansas that said, well, why don't we have something like that? And I thought, well, why don't you have something like that? So we started arkansassports.net as well. And the makeup of the state of Arkansas is similar to that of Oklahoma, with, 1 big school, 2 big schools, with, Arkansas, and then of course Oklahoma and Oklahoma State being 2 larger Division I schools. And I recognize that both Tulsa and Oral Roberts are Division I schools within Oklahoma, but still OU and OSU get the coverage. There are a bunch of Division II schools and NAIA schools. And so that's how that came about. God opened up some more doors for me. And then last year in 2018, we decided we should take this show on the road and make it into a game day type show for small college. Got our feet wet last year with Midwest Sports Saturday, and I really think we're on a roll now here in 2019. We've already been to Durant. We've been to Tahlequah, in Langston last week, and actually heading across the border to Russellville, Arkansas for this coming Saturday show.
When you do what you do, especially at the small school level, sometimes it can be difficult because not all schools have the athletic, sports information, communication departments that some of the larger ones do. But I know, dealing with the Great American Conference, which you do a lot, we're very, very fortunate to work with a lot of great media relations people, and that really makes your job traveling around this region much easier, isn't it?
Oh, there's no question. And you're right. We have some of the best, I believe, from top to bottom. We have some of the best sports information directors. And I know that's a generalized title. Some of them have received promotions to be assistant athletic director for media relations. Whatever the title is, these folks do a fantastic job, specifically, as you mentioned, within the Great American Conference. And I would dare say within the whole state of Oklahoma, the relationships that I built. And I think that really goes a long way, Todd, toward what you're talking about, because whether or not the information is always right there, those men and women can find it. They can get it to you in a timely manner and really open things up. And they've been very welcoming to me as well, from even when I started the original site back in 2011 to right now, that they have given me an opportunity to come to their campuses or make the phone calls and tell the stories of these athletes and these coaches and the departments that need to get out there. And I admit, I really do try to take a positive focus with all of this. I know there are times that there are stories that could be a little bit more damaging, and stories that don't, schools may or may not want to get out there. I would really rather take the positive stories and try to get those out there as much as absolutely possible.
I'm with you, man. I've never thought digging up dirt on people is the way to go in broadcasting. I just don't. I really don't. I think after a while, your reputation suffers over that. There's other people that want to do that. I'll leave that avenue of expertise to them. We don't want to forget about the MIAA, because that's where Northeastern State and Central Oklahoma reside. But the 2 conferences are very strong conferences. I don't think maybe people give the Great American Conference quite as much respect as maybe they should, but I think that's coming, don't you, with the more success they have on a regional and national basis?
Oh, there's no doubt. I think that a couple of things that have happened even recently within the 2018-2019 athletic year helped toward that. Of course, with women's basketball, Southwestern's women's basketball team was just phenomenal last year, and winning 35 consecutive games.
Unthinkable.
Bookended with a couple of losses, and I realized that. And I was listening to the national championship game and watching that as much as I could, and I really thought the GAC was coming home with its first ever national championship to the last second, and then a double overtime loss there to Lubbock Christian for Southwestern's women's basketball team. But I think that, and then of course the women's golf team winning its region, took a step in the right direction. And I think what Harding has done also on the football side is really starting to get the GAC some recognition. Now, I do want to hit on the MIAA, but to your point about the Great American Conference, maybe not receiving as much recognition as it probably should, that that may be when the first decade is complete. It may take either a national championship or completing that first decade as a full-fledged league. And the GAC is now in year number 9. So it may take a little bit. It doesn't have the history that the MIAA does. And what a fantastic history that is. National championships left and right. It has garnered the nickname for at least football as the SEC of Division II. And I was visiting with one of the basketball coaches, Todd, a little bit earlier this year, and he was saying from the basketball side, he felt like it was the ACC of Division II because there's so many good basketball programs and, of course, a national championship with Northwest Missouri for the last couple of years. So there's a lot of quality there. And when UCO and NSU made the move from the Lone Star Conference, maybe not directly into the MIAA, there was that year of independent time, and that was a tough time for both those schools. But into the MIAA, it really, I believe, has taken both those programs to another level.
I don't think people appreciate how good UCO's athletic program is, Joey, and I'll tell you why, because they don't win national championships per se, but they may be as strong of athletic program as most Division II schools. As you mentioned, unfortunately for them, they're stuck in probably in every sport across the board, the best Division II conference in the country.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, this is a program with an incredibly strong volleyball team, and you're talking about volleyball in the central region. UCO can match up with a number of schools, but they find themselves going up against, a Nebraska Kearney twice a year, a Washburn twice a year, and that's not even going up and facing some of the other Division II schools in the central region. I mean, it's tough just trying to get through the conference, and they're a very good volleyball school. I think that UCO in particular, you go back and you don't have to go back very far. 2013, 2014 is when they won the softball national championship and had such a powerful team then. And the wrestling program at UCO is big time. And so with that and some of the other areas, UCO is ranked or is on the list number 4 all time in Division II in football wins. And that is something that you could probably, overlook sometimes, again, right, when you're going up against those other powerful MIAA teams. So yes, very much a quality school. And I think it has helped them within the past 2 or 3 years to get some significant donations to help with their facilities as well.
One of the best guys in our profession, Joey McWilliams of OklahomaSports.net, and the host of Midwest Sports Saturday, is our guest on episode 29 of VIBELAND Sports. Joey, I don't know what you hear. I hear from time to time scuttlebutt that maybe eventually UCO will try the Division I route. Do you believe there's any validity to that?
I have heard that, I think, ever since I started broadcasting Southeastern games, that UCO would go that route. And I was in college from 89 to 93. One of my degrees is from Southeastern. I mentioned the other one from Oklahoma State. And I remember one of the last years that Southeastern played Central before things separated a little bit with all of the Division II and all the things that went on there. It was a powerful school then. They have not only, as I mentioned, the facilities, but the enrollment there. You would think that this is something that they could make that move. I've been hearing this for 15 or 20 years of that possibility. I don't believe that it's going to happen. I just don't. There are too many opportunities right now within the league in which they play to stay there, to be strong, and to make some noise, because UCO, even though it has been in the MIAA for 8 years now, is still growing within the league. And I think that the opportunities that are there far outweigh the possibilities of maybe an opportunity to maybe make something happen in Division I. And Todd, there's something else. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are 4 Division I schools in Oklahoma.
Right.
There are 2 of them really that get the headlines. Sometimes people forget about Tulsa, and there are a number of people that I talk to when I talk about Division I schools within the state. Well, who's the 4th one? Well, that's ORU. And because Oral Roberts doesn't have a football program, well, there's going to be even that much less press there. So I think that you really kind of muddy the works a little bit if UCO were to try to make that D1 league.
Okay, I have to admit something. Up until about 25 years ago, when I started with Northwestern Oklahoma State up in Alva, I was not really very well versed on small college sports. I am extremely well versed now, and I will be the first one to wave the banner, actually the second one behind you, and tell people how great small college athletics really are in this state. But to somebody that's listening and may not know anything about it, what would you tell them would maybe be a surprise or a couple of big surprises that they would see if they actually went to a ball game or they actually paid more attention to the athletes and the coaches and the programs within our borders that make up Division II and the NAI?
Well, there are a number of athletes that probably could be. I think the first thing is that there are a number of athletes that could be playing on the Division I level. I think in almost every school in the state, there are a number of athletes that could be playing on that level. But there are only so many scholarships to go around. There's only so much money to be given out at those D1 schools. And so if the athlete, he or she, doesn't get that call, well, there has to be a decision that's made. And I think sometimes, like on a signing day, you see that the kids that are ready to go D1, didn't get the offer that they wanted, and so they may even be considering a D1 school or an NAI school as well. This is my second choice. I like the people that look at it like, say, a Haley Tucker, who we know from Southwestern women's basketball team. That is one of those players she's one of those players that could have been playing on the D1 level. She may or may not have seen a lot of court action at the D1 level, but there's no doubt that she could be playing there. But she looked at Southwestern and said, this is the school for me. I found my family here. I found my place here, and I know I can make a difference right here. And there are so many athletes that could tell that very same story. I found my family here. I found where I know I can make something happen, and then it will catapult me to the next level of my life. And so I would say first, there are more quality athletes in D2 than are given credit for. And then to take it to the next step, there are some really good coaches on the small college level too. And it's for the very same reason that there are only so many jobs to go around. So anyone who has that bug to coach, and I've had that bug to coach, not on the college level before, Todd, no way. I enjoyed coaching in high school. I coached high school basketball for 7 seasons. I loved walking up and down the sidelines. There's nothing like that, and I still remember it to this day. But that time has moved on. I'm thankful for what God has for me now in getting to continue to be a part of sports even right now. But there are coaches who are giving of their lives, giving of their times, and just like we know teachers within the state of Oklahoma, there are so many coaches that do it for so much less than what they deserve, but they give those extra hours to these students. And I think that would be another thing that might surprise someone to even look at the resume of some of these coaches too, to see, oh, you coached on the D1 level for 15 years and now you're coaching in D2. Yes, he brought his skills. He took his talents to D2, and he's making a difference there.
Well, people might know that Al Johnson, or might not know Al Johnson, who's the head football coach at East Central, actually played in the NFL. He was with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, he does have a resume, and yet he is residing in Oklahoma. I love what you said, Joey, about Haley Tucker. She's actually been on this show, a delightful young person, easy to like, easy to root for. You're right. She put any ego that she might have had in check and said, I'm going to play where I can play and find my home, and she did at the Division II level. All right, we're about a quarter of the way through the small college football season in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Tell us a headline or two that we can look for as far as the Division II schools are concerned with the MIAA. Does UCO win enough to get to the postseason again? What about the Oklahoma schools and who prevails out of the GAC from Arkansas? And then take us a little bit in depth to the NAI side of things as well.
Well, you start with Central Oklahoma, and you have to say, hey, there is that possibility. That is a very tough league to get out of. Could they be playing in the postseason? Yes, I believe they could be playing in the postseason. Would it be a playoff game? That's going to be a challenge. There's already one loss, and it was a tough loss against Pitt State. That goes all the way back to the opening weekend, and I found that to be something interesting, that 2 of the most storied programs in Division II football wound up meeting in the opening weekend, and UCO came back, a valiant comeback. They still fall to Pitt State 37-35, but they were able to get a win over Kearney, and then they've blown out Lincoln. But there's still some tough games on the schedule for UCO. I haven't faced Northwest Missouri yet. That's who they're going to see this week. A Fort Hays State a team that was picked to win the MIAA. They get them the next weekend in Edmond, and then you have to go on the road to Central Missouri. These next 3 games will be big for UCO. Will they be able to come out of that? You get 2 wins out of those 3? Seriously, Todd, 2 wins out of those 3, and you really have to be looking at a postseason.
Yeah, they're in the catbird seat.
No doubt about that. So that's what UCO really needs to look at. I would say for Northeastern State fans, it's still a rebuilding year. It just is, and that's what Riverhawks fans are maybe looking at for a year or 2 to come. But if J.J. Eckert stays the course, and a Riverhawk alum or a Redmond alum at the time,
yeah,
Northeastern State alum, if he stays the course and stays with it, there may be something there for the folks in Tahlequah to be excited about. And I would almost say it's a bit of a jumbled mess between the Oklahoma schools, or among all the Oklahoma schools in the GAC right now. And how can you not look at Oklahoma Baptist then, a team that has now won 6 consecutive games against Oklahoma rivals with the win over Southeastern this most recent Saturday? How can you not say this is a team that could make some noise and could make it into that upper half of the GAC standings? I think it remains to be seen, though, and there's a lot more to this season right now as to whether or not an OBU could make it into the postseason, because there's still a lot of Arkansas schools to play. And those teams in the GAC, though the conference really is not a divisional conference, and I know that's something that the Commissioner Will Pruitt is strong on. He doesn't want divisions in the conference, and especially not along the state line. So I don't want to break it into divisional play right there, but I don't think there's any question that in recent years the schools from Arkansas have really had the upper hand.
And why is that, Joey? Why is that, do you think?
That's a tough call, Todd. It really is. And I hesitate to say it's the financial end of it, because I believe that's one of the things about the Great American Conference that is so nice for all 12 schools, is that there are a lot of similarities within the university and within the athletic programs themselves, so that it's not such a dichotomy within a conference. I mean, these are schools that left conferences, the Lone Star Conference and the Gulf South Conference, because of a dichotomy, because of the resources and the facilities and the finances as a whole within the athletic departments there, to find a place where we need to find some similarity. And even though I know that between the old OIC and the old AIC, there had been talk for decades to come together, that I think really was finally the catalyst to move the original 9 schools in the GAC together, were because, man, the Texas schools just had so many more resources and so much more financially, and the same thing for the schools in the eastern portion of the Gulf South Conference. I think that could be something to look at. Maybe a couple of schools within the conference on the Arkansas side may have the upper hand financially, but it just seems to be that the recruiting has been better in recent years, and they've been able to make things happen.
Couple quick questions, and then we'll let you go. You were talking about UCO opening with Pitt State. That's kind of an oddity in scheduling. How about Ouachita and Harding, for those that aren't familiar with the Great American Conference? In fact, I told Will Pruitt when he was in Shawnee a few weeks ago, I said, congratulations. I know this is the way the schedule broke, but you may have just crowned a conference champion in week number 1.
That's exactly right. And there were a number of those things, Todd, on week 1. And I kept looking at schedules throughout the 6 states that we cover with the MidwestSports.net and Midwest Sports Saturday. And there were so many week 1 matchups that just were oddities, just like that one. And again, they both came in similar rankings. I think Ouachita was number 6. They were around that area last season when the 2 teams met. Harding, I think, was number 20, around that area. It was a defensive game again, and it came down to the wire, just a 2-point win right there. It is interesting how those things work out, that, you look back on week 1 and say, well, the old motto in college football, every game matters. And most certainly, even to week 1, every game matters, even though between week 1 and week 12, both those teams will be totally different teams. If they can survive, even if they survive injuries and they have the same roster, you're going to be talking about players that have evolved, who have improved, who have gotten better from week to week. And I think it would be neat to get to see if there were a championship game. And I'm not calling for one. Please do. I'm going on record as I did not call for a championship game. But if there were one, to see how those two teams would meet up again 12 weeks down the line.
I will say this, Joey. It's a break in its sense for the loser of that ball game because you have a chance, and they're going to be favored, Harding in this case, in all the rest of the 10 games, to rebound and probably give the league a chance to get two teams into the playoffs.
Right. And Harding has done its part since then. And I believe, probably will continue to do that part. Harding is one of those teams anyway that it's tough to prepare for. That probably worked out to Ouachita's benefit more than any other team that Harding was first on the schedule, because with that option offense, you have all of camp and how many months to prepare for that one game. Whereas if Harding is in the middle of the schedule, you have to shift everything for a week, redo your whole defense, and try to prepare for that Harding offense with just 4 days to prepare, 5 days to prepare. So it probably worked out better for Ouachita than maybe anyone else because of Ouachita's preseason expectations.
Last question for you. The NAIA, a couple of in-state teams, Oklahoma Panhandle State and Langston, went at last week. You were actually there at Langston with Midwest Sports Saturday. Panhandle probably not going to challenge for an NAIA playoff spot this year. Can Langston, though?
Langston has the opportunity, but Langston still needs to get a few things together. It's a team that's still finding itself, and that was something even that Coach Morgan had said, that they're looking for their identity right now. And there are three young men still battling for the quarterback position, trying to solidify some kind of consistency right there. And so I don't think that the Aggies. I think the Aggies should be looking at the middle of the pack right now and trying to come into their own under a new coach in Coach Majeski there. But Langston still has an opportunity. They need to get past the penalties. There have been silly penalties through the first three games. They have to get through that and be able to move on. And also for the Lions, this is a team that needs to play 4 quarters of football. Did not play 4 quarters of football against McPherson in the season opener on a neutral site up at Wichita, and scored 21 points in the first half, didn't score again, and were able to hold on for a 1-point victory against the Bulldogs there. They go on the road to Arkansas Pine Bluff, get blown out by an NCAA Division I team, and at home they're able to, put 35 points on the board against a middle-of-the-road Panhandle State team. That's not going to fly here in a couple of weeks 3 weeks when they face off against Arizona Christian, and specifically when they're going up against Ottawa from Arizona. That's going to be in the middle of October, and they play that game in Arizona. That's going to be a very big home crowd. Ottawa has done really well this year. I think there's only one team that's going to come out of the Sooner Athletic Conference, period, in football, and the winner of that game will likely be it. So got about a month for Langston to really get things together.
My friend, you and I could probably talk for hours, but I guess we better let you go. Joey McWilliams, I'm going to tell you what, I've been in the Great American Conference now for 5 years, and I've said this from my very first day. There are extremely talented broadcasters in this league, but there's even better people, and my friend, you are right up there at the top, one of my favorites. Thank you so much for joining us here on VIBELAND Sports.
Well, I said it at the opening, Todd, and I will say it at the ending. The honor is mine, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to get to visit with you today.
We will visit with you on down the line. Joey McWilliams, you can find him at oklahomasports.net. Also tune in for his weekly sports college recap, Midwest Sports Saturdays. Again, Joey, appreciate it. We'll see you on down the line. We'll be back to wrap up episode 29 of VIBELAND Sports right after this. Get a big thank you to Joey McWilliams for joining us here on episode 29. Casady, as I alluded to in our first segment, you and I have known Joey for a long time, both through Oklahoma Baptist to the Great American Conference, and this guy is just a terrific, terrific human being that does it for the love of the kids and the smaller schools in which he covers.
Absolutely, and big fan of Joey. So glad that he was able to come on and impart his knowledge on all of our listeners, because again, he's one of the premier guys when it comes to small college athletics in the state of Oklahoma. He is the source to go to, and big shout out to him again for coming on. Great guy.
Let's talk about the big boys now. Oklahoma State dropping their Big 12 opener at the University of Texas, 36-30. I'm going to plead right now and tell you I didn't get to watch any of the game. I know somebody on this set that did watch all of the game, and we're going to let him pretty much break it down because he's breathing fire. Let me say this before you get started. In Austin, Cowboys don't play particularly well, and yet 36-30 is the final score. I know they scored a little bit late to make it look more respectable, but still, 36-30 against a top 10 team on their home field and not playing your best football, I guess, bodes well going forward.
I guess if I'm a glass half full guy, then
And you're not.
That I'm happy that I'm angry, if that makes sense. Like, hey, yeah, 36
Means there's expectations.
36-30 to a top 10 team. Yeah, I guess. But, like, we haven't struggled in Austin. We'd won 4 straight in Austin. This was going for 5 straight in Austin. We've had their number for some reason when we go to Austin. And
now, let me say something real quick. If you look back, Oklahoma State has had better teams during most of those visits going to Austin.
Absolutely.
This has not coincided with the best stretch of Longhorn football.
Exactly.
Regardless, you go to Austin, Texas, and beat the University of Texas, whether they're good, bad, horrible, whatever.
Yeah,
that's quite an accomplishment. But I did want to point that
absolutely, out. And that's going to pony off one of my points is that I'm trying to talk about is that how the thing that made me frustrated is the way that we called the game. We lined up multiple times on 3rd and 1, and we did it on 4th and 1, and tried to run the ball up the middle. We are Oklahoma State. We are a fast offense that succeeds with speed and by gassing the other opponents, by running on the outside. We're beating you with our speed. Our players are fast. They might not be faster than yours, but most times when we line up, we're going to have the faster players on the field. When you line up against Texas, that's probably not the case. They've got 5 stars, 4 stars littered all across that roster, and Oklahoma State can't say the same thing. The game was won and lost at the line. Their defensive line was blowing up our offensive line all night, and on 4 occasions, I believe, on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, we attempted to run the ball up the middle and got stuffed every single time, and it was infuriating to watch, to not try to go to the outside or run a read option with Spencer Sanders. If you watch Spencer Sanders all night, he was great, again, eluding pressure, making runs and tucking the ball down and making a play when he needed to. He is excellent at that. Kirk Herbstreit was falling in love and drooling with Spencer Sanders all over all night. It was kind of actually awesome to hear that a big national guy was just watching this for the first time and saying, hey, Oklahoma State, you guys have a quarterback for the next 3 years. You have a superstar. He was falling in love with him. It was awesome to watch, but it was so maddening that we kept trying to hand the ball to Chuba up the middle when it wasn't working. There was a play, Todd. It was 4th and 1. Gundy's sitting there trying to decide whether to go for it. We're down by 13. It's it's early in the 4th quarter, and we're trying to decide whether we go for it or line up for a field goal. So Gundy runs the field goal team out late. We stand there waiting to kick the field goal, but they lined up too late, so we take the delay of game penalty, 4th and 6. A logical person says, oh, hey, not a big deal. Amendola's a money kicker. Honestly, we were so close that backing it up 5 yards probably makes this an easier kick. But what do? We ran a fake field goal on 4th and 6. Not just any fake field goal. The play was our cowboy back, which to the common man is a tight end, lined up on the right side, runs behind the line of scrimmage. They snap the ball to the holder. He tosses it to the tight end. In a perfect world, he guts up and runs for a yard or 2. Great play call on 4th and 1. Not on 4th and 6 when you can't run the ball up the middle all night. Let's pass it to a tight end. And by the way, the pass was incomplete. We tossed it forward, fumbled it, Texas recovered it. No big deal. So it just was a disaster from every way, shape, or form. But that just goes to the play calling. On 4th and 1, that's an okay play call. I like Gundy going for it. But on 4th and 6, that's an idiotic play call. Made no sense. And by the way, if you're going to go for it, put Spencer Sanders on the field. I don't want my holder being my guy that's going to make the pass. If we're going to go for it, I like the trickery. I understand that. But in that scenario, at 4th and 6, it's unacceptable. And again, just the play calling that we had all night was so frustrating. We We succeeded when we were running it outside and, throwing the deep ball, throwing the underneath routes. They were working. It was good. It was working, but the running up the middle that we kept trying to do and force, that's not our team. That's not what we do. We failed time and time again. And by the way, on 4th and 1, if Oklahoma State lines up under center, we line up under the center maybe 5 times a season. It's a run up the middle, and that's exactly what they did and exactly what happened, and Texas read it like a book. It was the easiest play to read. Everybody in their right mind said, this is a run play up the middle. They're lined up under center. This is what it's going to be. So frustrating.
So who's calling these plays? Is it the Ivy League coordinator or is it the head coach?
This is where my theory comes in about our coordinator. This game was the tipping point where I believe that Gundy runs this offense more than anybody, because if you would have put a blindfold,
from what I can gather, this next week is the tipping point. This is where he takes over.
I
don't think he was calling the plays.
I think Gundy was. I think because of the play calls and how bad they were, it looked like Mike Gundy was playing Bob Stoops in OU, scared play calling, not stepping up and saying, "Hey, we're a good team." He was playing not to lose. It was so frustrating. I said it watching with friends. I said, this is like Mike Gundy playing against Bob Stoops and OU. It's like sometimes we have a team that can compete with OU, but the way we call the game and play calls just don't line up to give your team success. The coaches did not put the players in the best position to succeed, and that's their jobs, and they failed at it this weekend. And the reason I say that is because Gleason came in as this guy who's innovative in the red zone. I saw none of that on Saturday, which leads me to believe that it was Mike Gundy, because I saw these same play calls 2 to 3 offensive coordinators ago. So to me, there's a common denominator there, and it's Mike Gundy. And he's got to be called out for the bad play calling. I hope he realizes it and does better next week. But, okay, that's rant's over. I'm calming down.
Take a deep breath.
I want to say a positive thing that I really, really liked. Spencer Sanders threw a terrible interception, a freshman mistake interception that he had no business throwing. Texas goes down the field and scores. They show the camera on Spencer. He's over on the bench, again, looking at the play call, just like you were talking about earlier with Dak, looking at the play calls, looking at the pictures. He's hyping his guys up. Next play they get on the field, first play, he throws a freaking deep ball for, I think, 40 or 50 yards, and he caught it, completed it. I was all about it. So I liked that, the moxie that he has. I'm a big fan of Spencer Sanders, and I loved what he said after the game. If you saw his after the game interviews, he said, if there's anybody to blame, you put the blame on me. I forgot his quote, but he said it so great. He said, I look forward to learning from this and getting better and learning from my mistakes for next week's game. I look forward to my opportunity to make up for this. And it was just awesome to hear. He put it on his shoulders. That's the kind of leader you want.
Yeah, and I watched a decent amount of that game as well, and something that stuck out to me was that Oklahoma State's special teams really kept them in it.
That's the point I wanted to make. Another point I wanted to make was the muffed punts.
Oh, man.
Texas had 3 muff punts. Late in the game, we were down by 13. Again, I'm watching the game with buddies. The punt team runs out there. My buddy's screaming at the TV, going, what are you doing? What are you doing? I go, man, they've muffed 2 punts tonight. So, this probably isn't a bad call. And on clockwork, dude runs up.
This is where he ran up underneath it.
OSU recovers it. My other buddy punches me in the arm. He's like, you nailed it. You called it. So it was awesome to watch. But, yeah, that Australian punter, I'm going to get into nerdy punting. I noticed that he had one that was like end over end that was difficult to catch. Another one, he left it short where the guy had to run up, and he was running with his eyes in the air and dropped the ball. So he gave him a few different looks. I know we're getting into the nerdy punt. It's just kicking the ball in the air. There's some strategy behind it, and it paid off.
Sure.
It paid dividends this weekend. So, and Casady, you're right. That changed the game a little bit. We lost by 6. Could have been a lot more if we didn't have 2 or 3 turnovers on the special team side.
Yeah, especially that one early or towards the very end of the first half. I thought that gave OSU a lot of momentum heading into halftime, getting that muff punt and going in and turning it into a score right there with about a minute to go or so. So big shout out to the OSU special teams and what they're able to do. Like you said, I thought Spencer Sanders was very, very good. Chuba was pretty much just contained all game.
Yeah, I mean, his stat line looked really good, but I think
man, but he
anybody
ran
with 37 carries is going to get over 100 yards.
So many times.
37 carries, 121 yards. That's 3.38 carry. That's not going to cut it.
Yeah. So,
here's your quote, KP, that you were talking about from Spencer Sanders, who, by the way, the post-game quotes that I did read, I thought the young freshman accepted and handled the loss better and more, I want to say maturely, than the head coach did.
Yeah, and he didn't need to. It wasn't his fault. He was hampered all game.
Gundy didn't want to talk about fakes in the postgame show.
Yeah.
Here's what he said. He said, I've got to do better for this team. I've got to do better for everyone. So if anybody wants to point fingers, you can point them at me.
I like it.
Yeah, that's a winner right there.
Tom Herman told Mike Gundy, you have a quarterback in that kid.
Yeah.
So
he's right. There's no quarterback I love hearing talk more right now. I'll be on it than Jalen Hurts. I love what he's about, but Spencer Sanders, that's a close second right there. I love to hear that.
Cowboys fall in Austin 36-30. They'll try to get back on the winning track and even their Big 12 conference record this Saturday in Stillwater against Kansas State. This ain't the Kansas State Wildcats of the last couple of years. Chris Kleiman is showing what Joey would talk about if I had asked him this question, what all of us that cover small school athletics would tell you, that if you're a really good coach, whether it be high school, small college, you can coach in the big time. And I think there are still some people that are surprised that Kleiman, who came in from North Dakota State where they dominated the FCS level, is having success in Manhattan. He's not. This is a good football program, and the Pokes better not let Texas beat them again. Meaning they better put that game behind them and get ready for this game.
Absolutely. You can't dwell on that. And there wasn't like a bad referee call. It was Pokes got to look themselves in the mirror. That's who beat you on Saturday.
OU at home, they'll open up their Big 12 conference schedule against Texas Tech. About a month ago, this looked like it might be a more difficult game than it should be right now. Tech, of course, losing to Arizona a couple of weeks ago. They're coming off a bye week. Red Raiders still don't know who they're going to start at quarterback. I think they'll probably use two quarterbacks Saturday in Norman. But Sooners off a bye week, Cassie, that's probably either the second or third toughest opponent they've played probably in the non-conference part of the schedule.
Yes. the bye week, definitely.
Yeah.
Certainly better than South Dakota.
Oh, my goodness. I think that the Sooners coming off of a bye week, that's a dangerous team. They have been just itching to get out there, especially since the last game that they won, they dropped to number 5 from number 4, and then so they're still there. So they're going to be doing everything they can to get themselves back into that top 4 so that they're in contention for the college football playoff, and obviously that'll sort itself out through the course of the season, but it's just a little bit of extra fuel you can throw on the fire for them, and it's the Big 12 opener, so I think that the Sooners are going to come out really itching to make a statement and prove that they are one of the 4 best teams in college football, and go out there and try to prove that they are the best team in the Big 12, which I think they are right now. And we'll find out, I think, definitely after the Sooners face Texas here coming up pretty soon. But definitely with the Red Raiders right now, it's going to be an interesting test to see if the defense can keep doing what they've been doing, because the offense is going to be there. But are you going to be able to hold Tech under 42 points a game? And is it going to be just like you've seen for the last several years of the Sooners, where the offense is elite level, one of the top 2 or 3 in the entire college football, and then defense is just completely letting them down? Obviously, they're not ranked in the hundreds now. They're much better than they have been in the past, but now you're going to see a team that can actually put up points and is a Big 12 caliber opponent. So I think this is when the defense has their biggest test of the season to this point.
I don't know if you guys saw it this week. Mike Gundy, who a lot of times his cuteness and cleverness in news conferences drives me crazy. He eviscerated a journalist from Austin, Texas.
That's one way to put it.
Yes.
On the Big 12 coaches teleconference that's held every Monday. The guy called in and was asking about Basically, a fake article that had been posted.
I saw this roaming around. I saw this article. I thought it was hilarious that
I did
somebody
too.
posted that. So the story was that apparently
Boone Pickens had left $30 in his will for
Yes.
Mike Gundy to go get a haircut.
which is that's hilarious.
Okay.
Whether it's true or not, that's hilarious.
But well, first of all, who knows what he left in his will?
Right.
The guy's been
That's
dead
long,
a week.
That's a long will.
Second of all,
That man's a giver.
don't take up people's time with stupidity. I'm with Mike on this deal. I think it was rather disrespectful. I mean, T. Boone Pickens has been dead a week. Let's not make a bunch of jokes about it, okay?
Sure.
There's a lot of people that say that, it was all done in jest, and it probably was. But even if it was done in jest, that's a waste of serious journalists' time on that Big 12 teleconference. So I'm with Mike Gundy, who said, "You are a jackass. You should not be allowed to call into this. I don't know why they let you. You're taking up respectable journalist time by asking stupid questions." That's kind of paraphrasing what he said. It was hilarious.
pretty close,
Yeah.
though.
But anyway, what's your thoughts on Mike Gundy's rant?
I thought
He gets to be a little bit of a rattlesnake when things don't go his way.
See, it's funny to me that I bet you a serious journalist a few weeks from now asks him that question and he responds to it differently. So it's the guy who's asking the question, like you said, it's a week after Boone's passing and it's 48 hours after a loss. Not in the best mood. So I'm with you. I like that he put him in his place. And, from what I read online, a lot of other journalists really took up for Gundy. And you would think they would kind of stick up for their
took up
colleague.
for him on social media.
Yeah, and
Saw that.
you would think that they would stick up for their fellow journalists, but they were all kind of like, it's a waste of time. We're all professionals here. Let's be professional about it. So I'm always for a good Mike Gundy rant. Don't get me wrong. But I thought he would have handled it differently, to be honest. I was kind of surprised that he called him a jackass, but I mean, I got to side with my dude. I love me some Gundy.
It is what it is, and yeah, that was a bit of a, I don't know. I think somebody was trying to be funny, and it didn't really go over that well at all.
Swing and a miss.
Yes, and Gundy let him know in no uncertain terms that was not what he was about, and shut him down about as effectively as you possibly could. So I like it when he gets a little bit feisty. It makes it pretty fun.
I do not usually defend Mike Gundy in his rants because he almost sometimes comes off as being a sore loser, but I think he was certainly in the right in doing this. Just as KP said, if for nothing else, the timing of it, and the guy was from Austin, Texas. All right,
That's all you need to know right there.
Yeah, there it
that
is.
was a little tongue-in-cheek, humorous, play around. Life's not serious. This is serious. The flagship program of the Big 12 Conference in men's basketball very well may be in serious, serious trouble. Now, keep in mind, these are allegations. The NCAA still has to prove them. Kansas still has to appeal and fight any sanctions that would happen. But right now, KU has been alleged to have the dreaded lack of institutional control. They also have put a responsibility charge against Hall of Fame coach Bill Self. And there were three major one violations against KU basketball. And how about this?
Level
the
one
football
allegations.
program even got in on the fun.
Right.
David Beatty, the former coach of the Jayhawks, secondary minor violations.
You'd at least like to show something for that.
I'm going to tell you, this is going to get very, very interesting out of Lawrence because you can bet Bill Self, he's a fighter and he's a winner, and he is going to go down swinging if they indeed have things on him. I think there's a little bit of pressure on the NCAA's part from the federal government who led this investigation to come out and get somebody. Sure. And KU's been really at the top of the list in terms of the investigation. What's you guys' thoughts? This would not be good at all for Jayhawk basketball.
No, not at all. And I just want to come out and say briefly to give people an idea of kind of what you're talking about. Level 1 violations
are serious.
Are nothing to be joked around about as a program. If you get even one of those, it is like, DEFCON 1 goes off in the athletic administration office. Every compliance has probably not slept a wink since all this started. You've got people making phone calls and checking records and going through. I mean, it is a serious, serious thing that they're involved in here. And look, I've been in a athletic administration office for multiple years, and a few of those years at the NCAA Division II school, but it's still NCAA. A lot of the rules are very similar, and thankfully never had to deal with any like level 1 violations. It was always very low level stuff, just somebody forgot to turn in a form or something, and that was the level of violation we were accustomed to dealing with. But these allegations here are potentially, threatening to the program. Death penalty type things that we might see, like that we saw for SMU with football. We might see a moratorium on not just the postseason, but maybe a regular season they may have to miss here. If all these are found to be true, they're going to make an example out of especially a flagship program like Kansas, saying like, hey, you can't be one of the top 3 programs in all of college basketball and have these allegations and expect us to not just prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law, and that includes a loss of a season. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying that that's what's on the table if this goes the wrong way for Kansas.
In addition, Arizona, Auburn, Creighton, Louisville, LSU, USC also have been under the microscope of the NCAA. Now, here's one of the things. The document did not go into specifics, but one of the things is that a former Adidas employee, his name is TJ Gasnola, testified back in October of last year that he made a $90,000 payment to the family of then KU recruit Billy Preston and $2,500 to the guardian of current forward Silvio De Sousa. De Sousa, you might remember, was suspended for the entire year last year, was supposed to be suspended for 2 years, won his appeal, and he'll be back and eligible to play for the Jayhawks this year. Billy Preston never played at KU. But those are the level of charges that it appears that the NCAA has against Kansas, and there's apparently some text allegedly between this Gasnola guy and Bill Self.
Yeah, there's literally a text that says that they've shown that Self texted him, "You got to help me get some dudes." Pretty evident.
That just pretty much spells it out right there.
Yeah, so it's Bill Self probably knew and participated in this.
I'll tell you what I think's going to happen.
Others.
Curtis Townsend has been Bill's right-hand guy, very good recruiter for the Jayhawks. I think he'll be the first one that will fall in this deal. And you can say, well, he's a really great recruiting guy and he's a great assistant. No. That's not the way these big-time universities look at it. Assistant coaches are expendable, especially when it comes to protecting a guy like Bill Self.
Right.
Curtis Townsend will be one of the first that the hatchet will fall
guy.
on.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now.
Definitely.
But that may not be where it ends, but don't be surprised if that's the first thing that is done by KU.
Yeah, it's not looking great regardless of.
I hate it because I like Bill Self.
What's going on.
I
do too.
I like Kansas basketball. It's good
agree.
for the Big 12, but I think you guys are right. I think Todd, I forgot who said it, but you said it the best. I think they are going to be made an example of. I think that's what's going to happen. The NCAA is going to say, "God, this is what happened. It's been happening for a long time. We're putting a stop to it, and we're going to make an example of a blue blood program."
Yes.
And at what point does USC get just hammered? I mean, every other year they're in the news for some type of violation out there, whether it's football or men's basketball.
Right. I mean,
Tim Floyd, who used to coach at Iowa State, was in trouble in California with USC.
I don't even know if there's been a NCAA allegation fest like they have sometimes where they just say, okay, these 12 schools are under investigation. I don't know if they've had one of those in the last decade where USC wasn't one of those schools that was involved in some bigger or larger conspiracy or cover up or paying people under the table, whatever the charges were. It seems like USC always seems to come up in that cycle, and at some point, I'm with you, Todd, they're just going to have to, NCAA is going to have to say enough is enough and put the screws to them, and whatever program ends up getting it, I feel bad for them because it's going to be nasty.
And again, I know what everybody says, and I've said it. There is cheating galore at these Power 5 schools in every sport. The difference is, does the coach know if it happens? Like, I'll tell you right now, and I don't think there is, but if there is at OU basketball, I can assure you Lon Kruger had nothing to do with it. That guy's as squeaky clean as it comes. That might be where the problem is with KU, is that they have linked now Bill Self into this deal. It just happens, guys. And if you're a fan of a university and you say that my program, my university's never had anything illegal go on, you're crazy. You're living in a fantasy world.
Ignorance is bliss, Todd, as a fan and as a head coach.
It happens. And you know what? I think most of the time the coaches have no idea it goes on because you have big-time boosters with egos that want to help and be involved and close to the program, and they're out doing things illegally that coaches don't know about.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's our show for this week. We do have one more bit of housekeeping to take care of. Our VIBELAND Sports Fan Poll question of the week. We touched on this earlier. Now, what we're going to do on Twitter is we're lumping two teams together. So, of the NFL's 8 unbeaten teams, which pair are you buying the most? Is it A, Kansas City and Detroit? Is it B, Dallas and Green Bay? Is it C, the Rams and San Francisco, or is it D, New England and Buffalo? Of those pairs, which one do you believe are the best 3-0 teams or have the chance to continue to have success? Log on at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter. Guys, time flies. Big thank you to Joey McWilliams for joining us again, and we'll be back at it again next week. And this was a full house show today.
Loved it.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
We had a lot to talk about. Thanks for letting me rant and get my Oklahoma State anger out.
You look better than you did.
Man.
As soon as that game was over, I was like, I got to get on VIBELAND Sports. I got a lot to say.
Oh, yes.
I am angry.
You look better than you did when you walked into the studio.
Oh, that's
More
always
at
the goal.
peace.
That's the goal.
All right. Enjoy college and pro football this weekend. We'll see you back here again next week. For KP, for Casady, I'm Todd. VIBELAND Sports is a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Media.